Hey, hey, you're on the patio with TheEZGZ. Look what Mother Nature brought to my house yesterday. We must have got, I don't know, 6-7 inches of snow. It was so wet, I don't even know how you could measure it. I'm glad the trees weren't completely leafed out. We're going to probably lose a few tree limbs around here. A lot of stuff has got a case of the bends, but it's just so pretty watching this stuff fall off. I thought I'd grab the camera and share it with you guys. I'll be editing this video. I've made quite a few videos and deleted a bunch of videos over the last week, and I just want to continue on, get some stuff up there to entertain you guys and give you something to watch, because there's certainly not anything worthwhile watching on TV, that's for sure. I think I got it as good as I can get it. Maybe. I couldn't open it up. No, not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be that guy. And even though it was, you know, Easter weekend, it seemed like I gotta be cool. It's my neighborhood, you know. I've lived here a long time and I want to stick around. So at any rate, I started searching for answers, and so although so much has happened, I measured the fuel pressure and I was like 3.5. My gauge isn't super accurate, you know. So it's like, okay, I'll back down the fuel pressure. I took off the cover and I looked at the fuel level. This carburetor just seemed a little sluggish. But as I want to remind you, this was the carburetor that caught fire. So, and when I looked at the car, when I purchased it, the auxiliary venturis were missing. That's why I put the update kit. That's why we're here again talking about it. I got to figure out some things that, some solutions. So, I was going to set that float level. I might as well pick these both up. And, oh, I lost the needle. Okay, well, I heard it go tick. You ever do that? You're working on your car? And this is what I always tell you. When you're out in the sand, put a tarp underneath you on the ground. Oh, it's down there someplace. I'll find it, maybe. At any rate, I changed it. And this is the one that was in there. And although this probably doesn't mean a lot to you, I want to tell you the story anyhow. You can see where it's just slightly shaded darker. And the needle, I was trying to describe this to you with it all together. This needle, the new ones have like a Viton ring around there to make more of a positive seal. And they're probably resistant to the modern fuels, but this was the old solid brass one, and it looks a little dark, and it felt, as I was moving that needle up and down, I wish you could feel it, you know, smell and feel. That's what we need to add to YouTube. This thing is crunchy. It's just kind of sliding, and that's got to move freely in order for that to control properly. And then I noticed this black thing around here, and I had to get out the schematic, the drawing of the whole, the detailed drawing of the carburetor. You can find them online, and plus I had it in the book. And there was no O-ring in there. So it turns out there's supposed to be a fiber washer on the bottom, and you bottom that out into that washer, and it holds it in place. And so there were a multitude of sins, and I changed it, and I got it right in that Goldilocks spot, you know. So I got it in that spot where it was just on the internal shelf, and we'll probably take this all apart because I'm going to take it completely off. So I get this carburetor where I'm happy with the float level, and then I decide I'm going to check the other carburetor, and that carburetor was responding well. The idle jets were more precise. Not the idle jets, but the fuel adjustment screws, the needle valves down there on the other side, they seem to be working better. The accelerator pump squirter on this cylinder, number 2, it was kind of like dribbling all over its chin, you know. So I took that out, poked around with a pin, did all the things that we talked about in the video, and everything I did seemed to make it better. And then I drove it around the block, and I thought, well, you know, they're the same age, so I think I'm going to pull the top off of this carburetor and just kind of look it over. And then I got to thinking to myself, well, hey, I've got this other inlet valve. I'm going to replace the inlet valve on that side at the same time. And that one's lost on the floor. Someplace down there. I heard it. I think it hit the metal because I heard it tick, even with my bad ears. Oh well. At any rate, that was fine, and I screwed it up. I could not get that doggone float level right to save my soul. And I ended up taking it in the house and hooking up a fuel line, and I put it in an old ice cream bucket full of water, and I blew through the inlet, and I was moving the float up and down, because it's like, how did I miss this so many times? Because I would put it back in and then try to drive it a little ways, and, you know, I know before I get a block away if it's better or worse, and so I would turn around and come back and pull it in here, and yeah, so then I had to park it. You know, a lot of things going on for Easter here, and probably the same at your house as well. So that 3 and 4, I had fuel coming out of the spray bars. I've been having trouble with my inlet valves, the float valves, and I thought I had that all resolved. Now, one thing I'll tell you, another thing. I'll tell you everything that's on my mind. I always do, right? Having all this rubber fuel line is not probably the world's best thing to do, because it holds pressure. Okay, I don't see anything leaking out there. This side was the last one giving me trouble. It started off being a good one, and I had to change the inlet valve. There wasn't a thing the matter with it. It was doing everything that it should. The other carburetor is the one that had the fire in it, and I'll show you several things that I was noticing on that. Okay. Spray bars aren't dripping. I'm going to get my flow meter. I didn't do a very good job of showing that. I got 2 different kinds of flow meters. Maybe I'll show you that too. This is the one that I started with. Used that for 25 years. And it works fine. You just have a little bit. You just look at that little red plastic ball, get a visual on it, and then go back and forth the other side. That one looks like it's sucking more air. Hell no. You gotta catch it at the same RPM. This one I got the bypass. I don't know if I have the bypass open or not. I lost track. I'll have to double check it. Okay, so these 2 are right, but this one's a little high. Sometimes sometimes it's best just to let it calm down, because you're kind of choking it because you're creating a restriction by the device itself. It doesn't seem like it, but they're that sensitive. So 7, that's where I left it yesterday, or day before. This is 7. So this meter is happy. Now this one was lower. I had to open the bypass screw. I think this one was okay on both sides, but I'm kind of anxious to, yeah, this is close enough. It's starting to sound better. Now, what I was going to say about these, having all this rubber fuel line, when you shut it down, if you disconnect one of these clamps, you're going to get like a bunch of fuel coming out of there. Because it's like having a big reservoir under pressure, and it keeps your floats under pressure all the time. With a stock car and a stock fuel pump, going that short distance between the carburetor and the fuel pump, you don't want to create a situation where you're dumping raw fuel down your manifold. I use this right here, and this is from a pneumatics cabinet out of a HVAC system. Since everything's been converted to digital, they were just throwing all this stuff left and right, and I picked up some very nice quality gauges, and you're really on the bottom of the scale. Anytime you're using a precise measuring instrument, this goes to 30 pounds, so the place to get the real precise measurement would be at 15. But nonetheless, I backed it down to number 2, let the pressure off, restarted the electric pump, and I didn't want to overload those floats, so it sounds pretty good now. So, yeah, I didn't really like that startup, but I'm going to turn you off, put the air cleaners back on, then we're going to go around the block, and I want to compare it to the last time, because I think it's going to do much better. I don't like that fast idle, but I tried to get it down below that. The Engel 120 cam calls out a range of 1,500 to 6,000 RPM, 6,300 with double springs, which is neither here nor there, but you can't expect a large high-performance, high-compression engine to idle like a stock engine, even with one of these. Like the next stage up would be like an FK8, maybe, but that's a ratio rocker cam, and those are really difficult to idle down smooth. So there's a limit to what you can do, plus where you have these very large carburetors on them. I mean, golly, that's a pretty big butterfly to get it to idle down like that. I'm pretty impressed with it. So anyhow, too much talking. Alright, we're just starting off. Second. I know this microphone is crummy. Wow. A lot better transition than the last time I drove it. Okay, there it leaned out. It's Saturday, everybody's out and about. I just can't hot rod it. I'm not gonna be that guy. Not in my own neighborhood. Needs a little bit more fuel off idle. it is better, but I've had so many good combinations that my expectations are way higher than some people's. And I'm not just getting my ego in the way. I've been doing this a long time, and it's just not calming down low enough. I think it did way better with those 40 Dellortos and the 34 Venturis. Here I'm at 38 Venturis. Doesn't sound like that much, but it's a big difference. I might tweak them, but I'm going to turn you off. I might just play with them for a while. I know this is boring to watch, so I'm just going to play with the screws and maybe fatten up. You know, maybe if we, that might be something to do. Go to 4 turns out on all those idle screws. All of them are at 3.5. Sometimes just fattening it up a little bit. Let me do that. What I need is one of those, oh, you guys have left it in the comments before. One of those electric air fuel meters. 3rd gear. Watch the suspension. 0 air pressure in those front tires. They're 10-ply tractor tires. Now see, after you drive it a while, it's cleaning out. I bet it needs. I know what it needs. It needs more money thrown at it. That always fixes stuff, right? Uh-oh, looks like my neighbors. Leaving with a load of... God, I guess the dump would be open during these times. Okay, we're back. I forgot where I was. I was just bringing this stuff out. My little shopping spree. Now, this set of heads on this car has got the long reach spark plugs. And I pulled these out. And that has got to be one of the nicest looking plugs. Now, you're supposed to do a plug check at wide open throttle and, you know, cut it real quick and not have idle time, and I certainly wasn't doing that. But it sure looks to me, if anything, that either looks good or, if anything, on the lean side. So I was thinking that maybe I was flooding it and doing some issues. I had fuel pouring out of the spray bar down the other side. I was doing all kinds of crazy things, and you know, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, well, you know, big Venturis, big spray bar, and we were talking about how I wish there was something I could make these things work. So here's the Weber 40s, and of course that's what this series started on, right? And I had told you that I used one of these. I had tried making that 44 Weber that came on the single center mount manifold, and that was not going to work the way I wanted it to. I did take this carburetor. I chose this one because it had the springs on the right side and everything. And we've got the adaptation, so the throttle linkage is going to hook up to this one, and hopefully we're going to get that to work out. And I thought, you know, maybe I could just try to put these on. But, the big but, There's always a but, isn't it? See those holes? I had to drill those holes because I couldn't get these carburetors to work the way they were supposed to. And in order to get the airflow and have the butterfly covering up the progression port, like it says, it said if the center mount, you need to drill a small hole, like a 1.5 millimeter. So I think I started off with a small drill bit, and it still wasn't adjusting and idling properly, so I went the next size up, which was almost too big. It was like, this is crazy. I couldn't get it to idle any slower, but it worked out and it was functional and it was working, and I put it on the car, made some videos about it. And now if I want to put it back as a twin carburetor setup, how do I deal with that hole? I don't want to have a screw or a bolt in it. I don't want to weld it. At this point in time, I don't want to try grinding off the other side of the screws that are peened over, and it really recommends that you don't fiddle with those. And I just thought maybe I would get some JB Weld. I can't put silicone in there. I thought it would make a test, and although we know that for those Venturis on a 1600 engine, 115s would be a good choice for the starting point, but 1.25 Webers isn't that far off. It's only one full step up because it goes in increments of 5. So I thought, you know what, maybe that would work on this 2276, and I would have that drivability and economy on the low end. Now it seems to me I tried dealing with these carburetors on one of my engines in the tow buggy years ago, and you know I'm going to sound like I'm harping on the same thing, but this is the kind of stuff you got to go through with used carburetors. For crying out loud, set of used carburetors that had a fire in one of them. Used carburetors, and every time I got these, like at the swap meet, you know, I'm paying a couple $100 for a pair, and then you have to buy air cleaners and the gasket kits. And I'm telling you that I have bought brand new carburetors when they used to sell Dellortos when they were available. We bought 2 brand new sets of 36s. I bought a pair of 40s, and I had those on a car that I sold, and they all worked perfectly. Took them out of the box, put them on, set the idle needle where I needed to, and it was a done deal. They're a little bit more expensive now for sure, but what you look at the buying power of the dollar then and now, they hadn't gotten that much more expensive, and these have been a struggle. I got these 48s up here. I couldn't pass up those DCNFs because I thought those would make great spare parts for the ones that I'm running on my Baja. There's a set of used Cadrons. They came on the Baja when I bought it, so I ended up with those, and we ran those. They work fine. I just don't like the linkage, and I wanted a little bit more out of them. And so that was an Engel 100 cam on a 1600 with those Cadrons, which sounds like a really nice setup, and it was, but there are just too many miles on that engine, and it was wore out, and I had to rebuild it, and it came back to life as the 1800 stroker. So I got these 48s up here with 34 Venturis, and I thought, since those have the intake manifolds, might put those on since we have this time on our hands. So I'm still not giving up on the spray bars. There's a few things that I want to try. I went from 162 to a 165 main, but I am at 5,000 feet, so maybe that's too fat. Maybe I could go with the put the 162s back in there. I want to nail down this float level thing. I'm going to double check that again because it was giving me so much trouble. And I think I'm going to just go ahead and fill these holes in with this JB Weld and see what that looks like. And it's such a little small dab. Hopefully that'll work out. And the spark plug looked at okay, and I've got these 125s to stick in there, and we've got most of the linkage, so I think it's worth messing around with. I was online looking at different things, and I don't generally shop on eBay, but seems like they had some advertisements. Some guys were selling some other ones, so I'll put these 125 main jets in there. I'm sure I had 115s, but maybe I took the 125s out, and I think I ended up putting the ones from the 44 Weber into this one, and I was running it that way. Mileage wasn't that great. It was, if you really babied it and stayed out of the mains, it was okay. So I know this is boring you guys to death, so I'm gonna get started here, and I think I'll just I'm not gonna video this. I'm just gonna start tearing things apart. I might do a compression check, because I think I'm gonna visually check all the spark plugs once I get the intake manifolds off. It's hard to get these spark plugs out with these manifolds, even with this crummy aftermarket tin. So that's where we're at. I sort of had it in the back of my mind too. If nothing else, I've got this bone stock, worn out, dual port 1600 here. Although maybe I'd even put those dual 40 Dellortos on there just as a demonstration and see if we could, you know, fire it up here in the garage and sort of tune it a little bit and see how it acted. I've got different headers that I could put on it, and yeah, just some messing around here. A tub full of carburetors. Okay, enough babbling. Let's get after it here. Got a lot to do. Head out and have some fun. But wait! There's more! I need a burrito. That's what I need.